This video is going to cover how to set up your Premiere project to successfully create proxies of your 4K or higher resolution footage. The two most important things to remember about this particular lesson is that firstly, this is a process that happens right when you set up your Premiere project for the first time. This is something that you should do before you've begun editing, before you have started looking at the footage in the program, anything like that. This is really the first initial step that you should be doing with your footage, other than copying it onto your hard drive. And the second thing is that in order for this to be successful, you need to have two programs installed on your computer. That's Adobe Premiere Pro and Adobe Media Encoder. This process won't work without the two of them installed on your computer, so make sure that that is set up and ready to go before trying this process at home. So I'm going to go ahead and launch Premiere as though this is the first time, and the first time that I'm setting up my project. Okay, and you're going to make a new project. I'm going to name this Proxy Example. And you want to make sure that you set the location of where you're saving your project. Now, as we discussed in class, the best place for that to happen is in your projects folder. You want to make sure that you have a specific folder that you're designating your Premiere projects to save to so that they don't get lost in a complex file structure. So open that up and choose that. You can see we've got our previous students saved a bunch of their projects in here. That's exactly what you should do too. You could have as many different versions of the project as you want with the date on it, and then the final screener copy of it, but make sure you're directing all of these saves to that first project folder. Secondly, what we talked about in class is that on this secondary tab here, got your Scratch Disks tab, which essentially is where it's going to direct your autosave files, your graphic renderings, and any audio renderings that need to happen. It's going to create files on your hard drive. Don't be surprised to see them there, but it will direct them all to the same place that we just said we would save our project to. So you don't really need to do anything on this tab, but it's just for you to know that it is there. And then finally, where we're going to set up for our proxy creation method is on this third tab over here, which is called Ingest Settings. So click on Ingest Settings, and in order to set up our project to do this, we're going to toggle on Ingest, and then we need to select what we want it to do with the ingest processing. And so there's several different options here. The one that we're doing for this specific purpose is that we are going to create proxies. So select Create Proxies, and then we need to tell it what kind of proxy we want it to make. And so for the sake of keeping our aspect ratio the same as the footage that we are recording in, it's important that we stay in a 16:9 aspect ratio. In layman's terms, all you need to do is just follow my directions, which means that 1280x720 Apple ProRes proxy is in the same mirroring aspect ratio as our camera footage. So go ahead and set it up to be 1280x720 Apple ProRes proxy. And we do not want the proxy destination to be going to the same as the project. We need to set up a separate proxy folder, as we talked about, and it's going to essentially, what this process is going to do is it's going to take every single piece of media, of camera media that we import into our project, and because those are such large files, it's going to transcode them into these smaller versions of the file and put them all in a single folder for us to be able to access. So we want to choose the location of our proxies where they will be created. Go back to your hard drive, and in footage, I want you to create a proxy file. So that's what this student has done here. I'm going to make my own just for demonstration. So if you haven't made a proxy file for your footage yet, you're going to want to create one. So I'm going to call this Heather Proxy, and I'm going to create that. And so now all of the files that I ingest for this project will be created as proxies, and they're all going to go here. Now, just to be clear, You still are going to have the full resolution copy of your footage on your hard drive. That doesn't move, that does not change. It's just creating a smaller size of that file, so that way you can take this home, you can work on your own computer, you could work on a laptop, and it's not going to bog down your editing process because of these large resolution and large size files. So I'm going to choose that. So just to reiterate, we've created a project, directed it to our project file. We then clicked over to our ingest settings. We said, click this, create proxies, 1280 by 720 proxy, and you have to set the destination and make sure that you're directing it inside your footage folder to a proxy folder that you've created. And you can see that directory here, and you can see the directory for your project here. Again, this is all before we have even started editing or looking at our footage. So this is how we should set up our projects at the very, very beginning. So I'm going to click OK. And now when you launch into Premiere, when you bring in your footage, it's going to automatically start that proxy process for you. So I'm going to click over to the media browser. And we talked about using the media browser as a great method to bring in your footage because it sorts through complex camera structures. All that really needs to mean to you if this is your first time bringing in footage is that you need to go to your hard drive, you need to find your footage folder, and you need to pull in some of, let's do this one. You need to pull in the footage that you're looking at. Now, if you're not sure what you're looking at, if you're not sure that this is the files that you want, but if it's called some complex camera name, you can toggle over to this, which is going to show you a graphic view or a thumbnail view of the footage that you're looking at, so you can know that that's the one that you want to bring in. So in order to bring this camera footage into our project, I'm going to select it, which I just did. I'm going to right click and I'm going to hit import. This is now, let me pull this over for you, this is our project, so this is showing us everything that is in our project. And as you remember, I said that it might take a second, as it is right now, but now that it is going to automatically take control and start making proxy versions of these files. So that being said, when I import this footage, I should not be expecting to edit right away. I should not be expecting to review this footage right away. What I should be expecting is to start the transcode process. So import as much footage as you can, bring it into your project, and then what you'll see happen is maybe a huge long list of all of the camera footage that you brought in for that day, and you're going to let that do its process. It could take anywhere from 20 minutes, if it's a couple files like this, to a couple hours. So at that point, you're going to want to just leave your computer, come back to it when all of the proxies have been made, and then you'll be able to do the secondary process, which I'm about to show you. So I'm going to let this do its transcoding, and then I will cut back into showing you how to begin organizing your files in Premiere and how to pull them into your timeline. Okay, so when your proxy files are done being created, what you will see is this green check mark here, which says encoding completed successfully. So if you had a long list, scroll down, make sure that all of these are green. If any of them are not green, if any of them show a red circle with a line through it, meaning that they haven't been successful, you're going to want to re-click and select on those files, and you're going to click that green Start Queue or Return button, which means that it will give the program a second chance or make it run it again, so that way it can try to make those files successful. So if you're a group member creating proxies for your group and you are away from others who are there to secondary check you, please just make sure that all of the footage is marked with that green check mark, and if not, you do what you can to either re-import stuff if there are files that have gone wrong, or re-select them and try again, because it's very important that you do that. If not, there will be missing files in your project and everyone will wonder what has happened, so please make sure that you double check that. Once you're done with that and the proxying is finished, completely okay to quit out of Media Encoder because the proxies have been created, and I will show you that in our proxy file that we made together just now, in footage, Heather proxy, we've got the two different proxy files now, and they've added the file extension proxy, so it's very clear that this is our proxy file, and our original file, the larger camera version, is still in the original folder. So nothing has changed, we've just made new media. Now, to finish up on the proxy workflow, let's assume that my project is now getting to the point where it's maybe 5-6 minutes long, and at a certain point it starts breaking or glitching or slowing down or not being able to keep up with playing the video in real time. The first thing and the most powerful way that I want you to know about using the proxy workflow is that it's an automatic process that Premiere takes over for you. And so you would need to first add what's called the proxy toggle button, and you are going to come down here to the button editor, it's the plus sign, click on that, and you're going to find that icon right here, toggle proxies. Now, of course, I already have it here because I use this all the time, but for you, if this is brand new, you're going to grab that button, drag it down to your button window here, and then hit OK. And now, what Premiere is going to take over for you is that if you click this, that's turned on the proxy file. And you can visibly see that happening here because it's a smaller file, so you've got the bars happening. So if I'm playing through this, and I'm just going to drag some stuff down here to make it look really long. This is a super long video, and it starts breaking because it's using the 4K footage and it is not able to process it. The way that I first make an adjustment is I toggle on the proxies, and now the project is accessing those smaller files that we made, and so now it should have no problem going through those files and being able to play it in real time because they're much smaller now, what it's accessing. The second thing that you can do is that if it's still breaking down, let's say you added a ton of titles on top of it, or you have lots of layers of video happening, this is your quality monitor for your playback resolution. You can turn that down. So I had that on 1/4. You can turn this down to 1/16. Now you're going to see that the playback quality is going to look super gross. Yeah, just horrible. But it hasn't actually changed the quality, it's just how it's playing it back to you. So that's really important to take note of because now if I turn down that quality, if it's a really complex part of the sequence where there's a lot of stuff going on, now I can at least get through it because it's just going to play through for the sake of timing, and I can get a sense of what's going on here. I know that this is an interview, and maybe I'm just editing to see if I can get through the timing of this piece. So that's your secondary option. So again, first option, toggle on the proxy. Blue means that it's accessing the proxy file, not the full resolution file. Second option, turn down the resolution on your playback monitor over here. Last and final note is that although this may be turned on and I might be accessing the proxy file or the smaller file from this, I want to make it very clear that when I go to export my project, if this was my finished edit, which obviously it's not, but if this was my finished edit and I went to export media, when I export this project, it's going to pull automatically from the full resolution file. It will never pull from the proxy file, so you don't need to worry about relinking. You don't need to worry about going back and making sure that it's pointing to the full resolution media. You just don't need to. Premiere has this amazing function that it will take over that process for you, and it's going to pull, as long as it's still linked, to that full resolution media.